Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Skald Stories. Today we're going to be covering the neutral good alignment. Now, what is neutral good, and how does it differ from other alignments? So, the neutral part basically means that you deviate from other paths in order to do what you believe is right. So, for example, like I said in the last one with Kenshin in Lawful Good, if Kenshin saw a criminal running away from the police, he would not get involved because he believes it's not his job. He is not a police officer. He believes in good and helping out, sure, but he's not going to willingly interfere in someone else's business, especially in the law, because that's vigilantism. Neutral good says, well, I'm going to help out regardless. It may not be my job, but helping out is my job. The neutral part essentially means that you don't give a damn about what the law says because you're going to do what you believe is right. And one of the characters I have to help represent this is a good wizard, Gandalf. Now, Gandalf, uh, his lore goes way deeper than what I'm able to express. So instead, I'm going to just go through some of the snippets in the movies that I know of because I am not a Tolkien scholar, okay? So just bear with me on that one. But what I'm going to go over is some points that I think define Gandalf as neutral good. So the first one is in the beginning of the series, he comes to Bilbo's house and he says, I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure. And Bilbo obviously says, no, find someone else. And Gandalf says, well, it's decided. It'll be very good for you, and it'll be most amusing for me. Now, a neutral good character would, or a lawful good character, excuse me, would say, okay, well, I guess I'll find someone else. I respect your decision. But a neutral good character says, no, this would be good for you. This would help you out a lot. So I'm going to do what I believe is right, and I'm going to bring you along with us. And that's what happens. Gandalf basically says, yep, you're coming with. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He doesn't physically drag him away, which is what a chaotic good person would do. But a neutral good person would try to convince them to come with. They would help them see the benefits of doing that. How do we do that, you might ask? Well, by sitting down with a bunch of dwarves and having dinner and completely annihilating his pantry. Now you're probably asking yourself, what does this accomplish? Well, it's actually a subtle way to help get Bilbo to go along with the plan. If you look at the scene more closely, Gandalf says it's quite a merry gathering. So he's showing Bilbo that not only are the dwarves good people, but they're quite the happy bunch despite everything that they've been through. Once Bilbo learns of the plight that they've gone through, he begins to understand, hey, these guys have been through the shitter, and they're without a home, and they're asking me to help out. He doesn't really realize this until later in the movie, but essentially what Gandalf is doing is he's showing off the dwarves' hospitality, their mannerisms. Yeah, sure, they're a little gruff around the edges, but they do manage to help out. And in one of the ways they manage to help out is by doing the dishes. Once they're all done, they clean the dishes, and any damage that they had done, they clean up before they left. So not only does Bilbo see that the dwarves are respectful, they're also willing to smile through all the darkness, you know? And there's more out there than Bilbo thought. Gandalf even says straight to him that The world is not in your books and maps. It's out there. And he looks out a window. That's where the world is, and he wants Bilbo to see that. So, Bilbo takes off, and he goes with them. Now, we're going to fast forward quite a ways, so that way I can keep it mildly short. It's not going to be the greatest, but bear with me here. Also, yeah, there's going to be a lot of spoilers. So if you haven't seen The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, well, I don't know what you're doing here. But down the line, eventually the orcs do catch up with the company, and they have them cornered on the edge of a cliff. Now, what does Gandalf do? He manages to fend them off by lighting a bunch of pine cones on fire. Now, why do I think this is a decent neutral good act? Because Gandalf is obviously holding back. Gandalf doesn't like flashy magic. He doesn't like casting big fireballs and lightning bolts like you do see him do in more private settings. Like Sauron casts a full-blown fireball at him, or he summons lightning bolts to take down a Balrog. So, obviously, he could probably annihilate the orcs right here and there, but he doesn't. Why is this? Well, I believe it's because that would be a chaotic good trait, where they just throw it all to the wind and say, well, let's get this done. And a lawful good person would try to find a way out of it without resorting to this kind of thing. But Gandalf sees the danger. He sees, hey, we need to buy ourselves some time. So, he takes the less dramatic approach, because he doesn't want to become a problem solver for everyone. Oh, I'm having this big major issue. Better call Gandalf. Oh, we're in a tight spot. I hope Gandalf can get us out of this. No, he wants people to fend for themselves. He wants to teach people that, hey, you can do this. You don't need me to solve all your problems. I'll help, but I'm not going to be a crutch for you to lean on. You have to walk on your own 2 feet. So, what happens is Gandalf lights up some pine cones, tosses them to the other dwarves, and they start throwing. That's how they get past that. So right here, he's already showing off his character as he doesn't like to be flashy, and he doesn't like to be a crutch for people to lean on heavily to solve their problems. He doesn't mind helping, but his objective is to help people help themselves. And we're going to see that kind of theme throughout the rest of the movies. So what happens next? After this, they make their way through a field, and they come across Beorn's house. Now, normally, a lawful good person would turn away at Beorn's, basically, if Beorn said to leave, he would leave, and they would cut their losses. A chaotic good person would basically try to force their way in through, well, I don't want to say intimidation, but they would basically say, hey, we're staying here because it's dangerous out there, Beorn, so you're going to deal with it. But what does a neutral good character do? Well, exactly what Gandalf does. He tries to negotiate. He tries to do it through civility, and he tries to do it calmly and respecting Beorn's, well, let's say, hatred of dwarves. It doesn't exactly go the best, but he does manage to get in. And Beorn understands their plight. He even convinces Beorn to give them some of their horses, which he doesn't keep. He lets them go back to their home once they're finished with them. So, there you go. There's that. Now, fast forward a little bit more inside the woods of Mirkwood. We come across Gandalf in the forest of Dol Guldur. Now, when Radagast tells him of this place and warns him, hey, this could be a trap, Gandalf says, yeah, it's definitely a trap, but I have to explore this place. I have to see what's going on so I understand the situation. Now, a chaotic good person would say, nah, screw it. I don't care if it's a trap. We're going to go in, we're going to mess shit up. A lawful good person would probably say, well, we're probably going to scout around the situation and not disturb things because I don't want to poke the hornet's nest. but Gandalf understands the importance of the situation. Know thy enemy, as they say. So he goes in and he makes several different discoveries that change the entire situation far beyond what anyone else thought was happening. So, with that out of the way, that's basically all the Hobbit examples I could think of, really. So we're going to jump into Lord of the Rings. And one of the first one that happens is Gandalf's fireworks. Sorry if I'm going a little fast, but I have a lot of points to make. I'm sorry. But yeah, Gandalf's fireworks. Now, again, he doesn't like being a flashy wizard, which is strange considering he makes fireworks. But consider why he makes them. He wants to bring joy to people. He doesn't mind being flashy in the sense that, it's a merriment, it's a celebration. Not to mention, it makes him some money. So why not? He makes cool fireworks. And he laughs a lot about it. Like, for example, when he first drives into town, a lot of the kids want to see his fireworks. And he's like, nah, not going to show them anything. And then as he's driving away, he lights off one of them as a little preview for the kids, and he laughs. They laugh. Everyone has a good time. Now, this basically goes against his I don't like flashiness, but that's only really in fights and in big wizardry, so I give this one a pass. It's kind of a minor trait, but I think it kind of fits him. Now, what happens next, you might ask? Well, this is when Gandalf confronts Saruman. And he basically says, well, you've turned to the dark side. What are we going to do about that? A lawful good person and a chaotic good person would basically try to react the exact same way. However, there's one major difference, I think. In the scene, when he tries to escape, he walks from door to door and Saruman closes the doors. Now, in my opinion, in a situation like this, the lawful good character would try to negotiate their way out. Try to appeal to the good that Saruman used to have. Gandalf doesn't do that. He basically accepts, hey, I'm trapped. This is how it's going to be. And he readies himself. A chaotic good character would probably just attack Saruman right out and say, hey, open the doors. I want out of here. But Gandalf pretty much says, yeah, you've gone to the dark side. So let's settle this here and now. And, well, I'm not going to spoil what happens. What happens next after that? Well, we go to the birth of the Fellowship. Now, Gandalf obviously presents his arguments to the council, and in my opinion, a lawful good character would let things play out, or they would at very least let themselves be asked if they want to go along. I mean, sure, some would probably go along and say, hey, I'm coming with you. A chaotic good character would say, yeah, I'm going with you. And I'm going to, mess shit up. We're going to do this. And he would probably try to convince other people to also fight for them. In the council meeting, he even busts out the black speech to get his point across. And he scares the ever-living daylights out of everyone there. A lawful good person, I would assume, would not stoop to doing something like that. A chaotic good person would throw it in their faces. But Gandalf is using it as an example of what would happen if they did nothing. He's pushing the objective on everyone without being forceful. He's showing an example, not throwing it in their faces. Not like if he busted out some kind of dark magic or something like that. He basically says, hey, if you don't want to hear this voice throughout the world, you might want to get on this train. So, we go on to our next point. We go all the way to Moria, where he scolds Pippin for making a bunch of noise. Now, this part is another minor one in my opinion. but it also shows the difference between lawful, neutral, and chaotic. When Pippin makes a bunch of noise, it potentially alerts their position, which Gandalf, of course, is trying to keep secret in order to avoid detection. When Pippin makes a lot of noise, he scolds Pippin, calls him a fool of a took, and basically says, hey, next time, throw yourself in and rid us of your stupidity. Harsh, yes. A lawful good character would probably be like, well, that sucks, but hey, it is what it is. And a chaotic good person would probably lose their shit and say, you dumbass, what are you doing? Get the hell out of the party if you're gonna do shit like that. I think it was the correct choice to scold Pippin, because it gave him a wake-up call, and it put everyone else in danger. And that would help Pippin understand the gravity of the situation that they're in. Merry and Pippin really didn't understand how things were going to go. They were pretty nonchalant about the whole thing. But this scene is what really woke them up to the situation. And Gandalf basically said, hey, we don't have time to play around anymore. This is serious. You can't make mistakes like that or people will die. Now, he didn't get forceful with Pippin. He scolded him and insulted him because, well, you could literally risk lives. So, in my opinion, it was the right call for a neutral good character to make. Fast forward a little bit more, and we confront ourselves with the Balrog. Now, this one's a little tough to narrow down as far as neutral good goes, because this could really be a toss-up between lawful and chaotic good, no problem. Gandalf basically sacrifices himself and tells the party to go on without him. But in my opinion, I would say a chaotic good character would try to find a way to defeat the Balrog through a collective effort. So, like, for example, instead of staying at the middle of the bridge, a better tactical decision would be to go back a little further toward the one side of the bridge and hold that, while perhaps Aragorn and Legolas shot it with arrows and they tried to knock it off the narrow bridge. If it made a jump for the edge, Gandalf could use a spell and knock it down to the bottom, something that pushes it back, you know? That to me is what a chaotic good character would do. A lawful good character would probably try to find a way to escape without confrontation and attempt to get away, because a Balrog on this tiny little bridge, I mean, you could probably back up and crack the bridge yourself, but at the same time, it has wings. So Gandalf understands that even if they turned around and tried to run as fast as they could, it just risks more danger because it's not defeated. So in his opinion, his only choice is to hold the bridge to give the others time. And he holds it in the middle so that way the Balrog can't get around him. It can't just jump and fly to the other side because Gandalf is essentially putting up a wall between those two things. If he pulled back towards the edge, like I said, the chaotic good character would do, it would have a better chance of just leaping across. But that's if you want to lure it into a trap. This Gandalf here is trying to force its position and trying to let it know, hey, you're not getting through, get away from us. And when it stepped forward, the bridge gave way. But Gandalf got caught in the crossfire, and he became Gandalf the White, who, in my opinion, is the worst Gandalf. I prefer Gandalf the Grey. He's much more down to earth and not as assertive. But the reason he still stays within the neutral good category instead of the chaotic good, he is still aggressive, but he still respects boundaries. So Gandalf the White is more assertive, but he's also reserved. And I'll show you what I mean. So from there, they ride to Rohan, and they try to convince Theoden to fight. He doesn't say, hey, you need to take your forces and get off your ass and help them. And a lawful good character would respect the wishes of the king and say, well, I did my best in trying to convince you, but it is what it is. So Gandalf essentially says, hey, he points to the children and says, this is what will happen if you don't get off your ass. He doesn't force him to get off his ass. He doesn't respect his decision to stay on his ass. He shows him an example, again, of what would happen if you sat around and did nothing. People will die. That's a fact, Jack. So, he set off to go find the Rohirrim and help out in the defense of Helm's Deep, in which he arrives, precisely when he means to. Although I would debate, coming along a little sooner would be nice, but hey, what do I know? But he does arrive with the Rohirrim, and they save the day at Helm's Deep. So, in a sense, he kept his word, and he did what he felt was right. He could have easily just stayed, used his massive amounts of magic to hold off the forces, but again, he doesn't want to be a crutch that people will depend on in order to survive. He wants them to survive on their own merits. He could have easily wiped out most of that orc army with his eyes closed. I guarantee he could have launched like 2, 3 fireballs, some lightning bolts, anything, and he would have wiped out that orc army in minutes. But again, Gandalf isn't a secret weapon. He's a guide. He's a teacher. He's someone that leads others so they can lead themselves. That is the purpose behind Gandalf. Then we fast forward further, where Gandalf and Pippin are in Gondor parlaying with Denethor. Now, of course, Denethor is an asshole. We all know that. And again, a lawful good character would accept Denethor's decision of, hey, we're not going to contact Rohan because Rohan is a bunch of assholes. They're not going to come to help us. Gondor is the one protecting the world, so we're going to be the ones to handle everything. A chaotic good person would basically slap around Denethor and say, hey, you're going to get off your ass and you're going to help us, or so help me, I'm going to do something about it, or I will usurp you in a sort of way. He would have basically put him behind bars in some secret way or some such. But Gandalf is disgusted at this. He says, he uses his son's grief as a cloak to hide his inactivity. He's just cowering away, worrying about Boromir's death, spoilers, and not doing anything about it. So what does the neutral good character do in this situation? Well, I'll tell you. Wait a minute. 16. Oh, I numbered these wrong. What happens is he basically listens to Denethor and tells Pippin, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's the darkness before the dawn. It's going to suck, but we're here and we have to fight. So he comforts Pippin, especially after scolding him the one time, but now he completely 180s and he helps Pippin along. See, he doesn't come at him with kid gloves the one time, and right now, he doesn't come at him aggressively. He's playing the neutral field. If he played lawful good twice in a row, consoling Pippin and saying, hey, don't worry about it, that's fine. A chaotic good would have come at him a little harder both times. And he would have said, hey, you fucked up royally. And in this sense, he would have said, well, here's the reality, get used to it. But a neutral good character, he scolded him first, and now he's helping him understand the gravity of the situation. Like, he wants Pippin to stand on his own 2 feet, yeah. But he's also saying, hey, courage is what we need. Not swords, not magic, it's courage. If you have that, you can beat anybody. But, like I said, they basically say, screw Denethor. We're going to call for Gondor ourselves. Or call for Rohan ourselves, excuse me. So that's what they do. Gandalf tells Pippin to light the fires, to light the beacons, and alert Rohan of the situation. A lawful good character would have respected Denethor's decision and would have tried to find another way around it. a chaotic good character would try to force Denethor into doing this thing. But a neutral good character, this, I believe, is the peak of that alignment. They do what they believe is right, regardless of whether or not it lines up with the law. Denethor said, no, we're not contacting Rohan. And Gandalf said, well, fine, I'll do it myself. Fuck the consequences. So he convinced Pippin to light the beacons, and Rohan is signaled for aid. So the battle happens. Gandalf rallies the soldiers when no one else will. And he spreads the message again. You are soldiers of Gondor. No matter what comes through those doors, you will stand your ground. He doesn't forcefully tell them, hey, you're a bunch of cowards, get your asses on that wall. He doesn't say, well, for those that can't fight, go hide. He tells them, hey, if you lose out on your post, if you remove yourself from your post, people will die. You are soldiers of Gondor. This is what you are trained to do, and we need you now. He doesn't say, get off your asses and get to the fight and defeat the enemy. He doesn't say, well, if you can't handle it, get out of the kitchen and leave room for those that do. He reminds them of why they signed up to be Gondorian soldiers. And he leads the charge. Again, not with magic, but with courage. He reminds everyone of what they're fighting for. And later down the line, you can see him fighting alongside everyone. No problem. Gandalf is literally in the thick of it. Even without his staff, he's in the thick of it. He's fighting alongside his men, because that's what he deems to be right. He doesn't stay back and command them in a safe position to help strategize or use formations, or what's the word I'm looking for, to kind of lead the troops, as it were. And he's not chaotic good by openly attacking. He's just on the wall defending the position. Cool. Sounds great. And then eventually we come to the point where Gandalf and Pippin essentially accept their fate. They've been pushed so far back that there's literally like one door and a courtyard left before the orcs burst through. Gandalf is without his staff, but he could save everyone with his magic. If you saw during the Balrog fight, he was able to summon a lightning bolt and take out the Balrog. So what's stopping him from doing this now? Well, again, he doesn't want to be relied on, even if it possibly sacrifices a bunch of lives. Now, to me, that's a little selfish. You could save everyone by unlocking your power. But again, you have to understand Gandalf. He doesn't want to be a crutch. He wants people to fight their own battles and grow themselves. If you sit and do everything for them, they're not going to grow. They're not going to learn. They're not going to expand. They're going to be stagnant. And that's not what Gandalf wants. So he chooses not to do any of that in this situation. It's either that or he's really tired and out of mana. I don't know. But in this part, he tells Pippin, hey, death is not the end. It's you go on for something greater. And he comforts Pippin, and he's with him through the end, and he says, all right, you ready? We're going to meet death head on with courage, like I've been telling you. He doesn't try to rally Pippin and say, we're going to kick as much ass as we possibly can before we go down. He doesn't go lawful good and tell Pippin to try to escape and run. He wants Pippin to be courageous. He wants him to find that fire within himself. So that way, Pippin will grow, and he will learn and become a better person for it. The risk of death, in Gandalf's eyes, that's worth it. And I can see where he's coming from, even if I don't agree with it entirely. So, the duality of Gandalf, I think, is what makes him a good example of a neutral good character. He doesn't obey authority. He does, but His one and only goal is to do the right thing. You damn cat. Get out of there. She's being naughty. Even in the council, they say, no, I'm not going to condone or I'm not going to support the dwarves in their quest for Erebor when Gandalf sent them on their way already without the council's approval. He does a lot of things against the wishes of people in authority because he does what he believes is right. Doesn't matter who gets in his way. Damn it. Whether it's Gandalf the Grey in his more gentle nature, or Gandalf the White in his more assertive nature, he doesn't want to be a crutch. He wants to teach you how to stand on your own 2 feet. Whether that's the soft way or the hard way. And that's why I believe Gandalf is a perfect example of a neutral good character. I hope you enjoyed this little analysis, and I hope you found it insightful. Tell your story, my friend.